Today we are talking about parking at Disney World. This is a complete guide to the costs depending on your situation and some tips and tricks to help you with that. So first I want to start with free parking options at Disney World. If you are staying at a Disney Resort hotel, including the Vacation Club resorts, overnight parking at your hotel and parking at the theme parks is free for the duration of your stay. For a while, they were charging overnight parking, and that was not received very well. So they have done away with that. Both water parks are also free to park at for everybody. They have never charged parking, and hopefully they never will. Disney Springs parking is also free. The parking garage and the lot, all of it is free. And then if you are a cast member or if you have certain tiers of the Disney Annual Pass, you can also get free parking at the theme parks. If you have a dining reservation at one of the Disney hotels that you're not staying at and you're going to drive over, you can also park there for free in their short-term parking. Some of them will give you like a timed ticket type of thing to put on your dashboard. What's coming to mind in particular is Grand Floridian, especially if you have a reservation there during Christmas time, because they do like the gingerbread house and things like that they usually give you like a 3-hour time span for you to sit and have your meal, and then you will need to move your car and go somewhere else. You do have to have an actual dining reservation though. You can't be doing like a mobile order pickup or something like that. It has to be an actual like table service dining reservation. Or if it's like a resort that has like a spa or something, if you have something booked there, then you can park there. They kind of go back and forth on this policy here. It depends on seasonality and how busy it is. A lot of the time you can just drive to a resort if you just want to go. If you just say, oh, we're just gonna eat lunch or whatever, then they will usually let you in. Sometimes they are like very, very strict where they have to be able to like find you in a system. So just plan to potentially not be able to, that way you don't get stuck. So third party parking at Disney. So not every single thing at Disney World is Disney owned and operated. For example, the Swan and Dolphin resorts in the Boardwalk area, those are Marriott resorts. So they do charge for parking here, but you can get it validated if you have an appointment at their spa or if you're dining at any of these table service restaurants. And then some other paid parking situations. If you're visiting any of the theme parks, that is paid parking unless you qualified for any of the things that I mentioned previously. And they do have preferred parking, which is generally like $15 to $25 extra. It depends on the day. They do like surge pricing. But as of recent, this is the pricing if you don't qualify for any of the free parking. And then parking in general for like the Swan and Dolphin, if you aren't able to get it back, this is their most recent pricing. There's also the Bonnet Creek Resort area, which has like Wyndham and Hilton and some other resorts back there. And the Disney Springs area has a lot of non-Disney hotels. They all have their own thing, and there's so many different ones that I can't list them all here. But if you just look up the specific one that you're trying to go to, then you can find it. So a few tips for theme park parking. They do have a complimentary car locator in the My Disney Experience app. So you'll be able to find your car at the end of the day. My phone has that on it too, like in the Apple Maps. But another thing you can do, like if you cannot find your car for whatever reason, you can ask any of the parking cast members. And if you can give a time frame of when you arrived, they can narrow down where you would have been to help you figure out where you're going. What I like to do is I also usually take a picture of the row number and everything like that. If you're taking the trams, all 4 theme parks have parking lot trams that will take you up to the front, because some of the parking spots can be all the way in the back on a very busy day. They will usually tell you too, like we just picked up from, this section, this row. So when you're coming back, here's the number to remember. And then also they do have electric vehicle charging stations if you do have an electric vehicle. All 4 theme parks have it. And then Disney Springs has a handful of spaces in each garage and lot as well. The only hotels that have them right now are Coronado Springs, Riviera, and Wilderness Lodge. I am actually kind of surprised that those are the only ones that have them, but I am sure more will be added over time. They have different pricing for the resort hotels in Disney Springs as well. So for guests that have any sort of physical disabilities, or if you're using any sort of wheelchair, scooter, any sort of mobility device, they do have disability parking as long as you have that placard, and they will direct you to that specific spot of the parking lot as well. A little bit of a hack, I guess, if you don't have a disability parking pass, something that you can do is when you are coming into the parking lot and they're directing you where to park, if you can ask them for a spot at the end of the row that's closest to the tram, they can also accommodate you for that. If you even want to mention, like, for mobility issues, 9 times out of 10, they should be able to accommodate you on that. Here are some extra things to just know before you go in regards to driving your own vehicle at Disney and parking at Disney. All of the parking fees are non-refundable, and it includes like preferred parking and upgraded parking as well. Parking is limited in a sense. They don't necessarily fill up all that often, except for like Christmas, New Year's, and maybe like marathons and stuff. So you're not always guaranteed to be able to park there, but as long as you're getting there like before noon, basically, even on like the highest peak days, you shouldn't really have a problem. You do get in and out privileges with this parking, and it is like a one day pass. So like if you go to Magic Kingdom and you pay to park, if you go to Epcot later that same day and you just show them that ticket, then you're good to go. You don't have to pay. But if you do leave, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to have a spot at the next place either, just because you've paid previously. But again, that really only applies, I would say, like Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, and maybe if there's some sort of like super big special event that like everyone has been warned is going to be like very, very busy. If you are nervous about driving around Disney World because you've like never been and don't know where things are, I don't know that this will make you feel any better, but there are some ways to come a little bit more prepared. So definitely use your GPS the entire time. There are also signs directing you the whole way. It really helps if you know too, like if you're going like between resorts, knowing what resort area your destination is. So if you're going to the Contemporary, that's the Magic Kingdom resort area. So they may not necessarily have signs listing every single resort every single time, but if they say the Magic Kingdom resort area, you know your resort falls under that. So if you can think of those things, like in here I said the Epcot resort area. So if you can think of things like that, that will also help you kind of scan the signs a little bit faster. They also do have lanes specifically for buses that you are not allowed to drive in. This is mostly going towards the Disney Springs area. They're in the very middle. They have dividers, so it is super, super obvious. It would be very hard to get into them, but it is just something to just be aware of. Speed limits and safe driving is taken very seriously on property. Even like cast members, if they get a ticket on property, 9 times out of 10, they're going to be fired instantly. And so just follow the speed limits. Pay attention, don't be distracted, have a navigator helping you out, and then just try to be a defensive driver. Most people that are there driving around don't know what they're doing either, so people are, slamming on their brakes or switching lanes last second to get on or off an exit. So just be aware and pay attention, and if you can have an extra passenger keeping their eyes out, that is even better. So the fastest way to get around Disney World does kind of depend on where you're going and when, and like how big your group is, or if you have strollers or wheelchairs or ACVs. There's a lot of factors, but I do have a deep dive on Disney's transportation versus driving yourself if you are concerned at all about what is just more convenient and quicker to get to. And that is all that I have.